Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's deep dive. If you're tuning in right now, you are almost certainly trying to wrap your head around a news cycle that has just, well, it's accelerated past dizzying.
Right. It's into something entirely unprecedented.
Exactly. And we need to acknowledge right at the top um, the sheer historic weight of what we are examining today. Because over the course of a single weekend, the entire map of the Middle East has fundamentally changed.
It really has. The whole geopolitical calculus of the region has basically been rewritten in just a couple of days.
Yeah. So to navigate this, we are looking closely at a transcript from a very detailed news briefing. And this source lays out a massive, multi-front military escalation across the region, and it traces the immediate global fallout from it.
The speed of this shift it's what makes it so critical to analyze methodically. Our mission for this deep dive is to serve as your filter. We're going to cut through the noise, bypass that immediate panic, and simply calmly lay out the exact timeline of what just happened.
Right, the what, the when, and the where.
Exactly. We'll look at the aggressive reactions in the global markets
Huh.
and dissect the domestic political reactions that are already happening in Washington. Events of this magnitude create, an overwhelming amount of raw data. So we're just going to walk through it step by step.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the gravity of the situation right now, we kind of have to recognize the baseline we were operating from, what, just 72 hours ago?
Yet, just this past Friday.
Right. The region had been sitting under a relatively quiet ceasefire for about a year. And, I mean, quiet is obviously a relative term there.
Highly relative, yes.
But it was a sustained pause, and that pause is now completely gone. It hasn't just frayed, it has officially fractured. We went from a tense standstill to a massive escalation literally overnight.
The abruptness of it is staggering. For a year, global markets and military planners had basically priced in that uneasy quiet. That was the baseline. Then came the shatter point.
And the spark for that shatter point, we need to get right to it. It traces back to a very specific, coordinated event on Saturday.
Right. A joint operation by the U.S. and Israel.
Yeah. And the target was Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The operation resulted in his death. And that is the exact moment the board was upended.
It's the elimination of a head of state, the ultimate religious and political authority in Iran. Targeting that specific individual is a staggering move.
So what happened next?
Well, what's fascinating here is the absolute immediacy of the domino effect. Usually in geopolitical events of this scale, you see a lag.
Like a period where everyone just kind of holds their breath?
Exactly. A strategic silence while the opposing side calculates their response. There was no lag here whatsoever.
It was instant.
Instantaneous. Hezbollah immediately launched massive rocket attacks into Israel, explicitly claiming it was to avenge Khamenei. And Israel simultaneously stated their retaliatory strikes in Lebanon were launched specifically to neutralize those incoming rockets.
And so the cycle locked into place right away.
Right. Both sides tying their kinetic operations directly to that Saturday operation.
But the geography of this, it's wild. It's not a localized skirmish anymore. The map is widening really, really fast.
Much faster than anticipated.
Yeah, because early Monday morning, there were major explosions reported outside of Beirut. But the intelligence briefings also detail strikes happening in Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain.
Which is a massive shift.
It drags the Gulf states right into the crosshairs.
That widening map is probably the most critical tactical development we're tracking right now. This conflict has suddenly stretched across the Arabian Peninsula and deep into the Persian Gulf.
And these places, I mean, they house critical infrastructure.
Huge financial hubs. And crucially, significant Western military assets. By expanding the strike zones to the UAE and Bahrain, the retaliatory forces are signaling that no American ally in the region is insulated from this.
It's a strategy to stretch the defenses.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They are forcing the U.S. and its allies to defend multiple fronts at the exact same time.
And as we map this out, we have to talk about the human cost. We're going to impartially report the facts laid out in the source material because the civilian toll is stark.
It is. On the ground, the Lebanese Health Ministry reported at least 31 people killed in recent strikes. We're seeing civilians actively fleeing cities in Lebanon.
And the tragedy is compounding across the borders. In central Israel, in Beit Shemesh, 9 people were killed in a strike. And the briefing notes this is the worst single casualty event for Israel since this specific conflict cycle began.
Right. To penetrate Israel's air defenses to that degree indicates a really severe saturation of their airspace.
And the reporting also mentions schools being hit in Iran.
The civilian impact is widespread and deeply tragic on all sides. When urban centers are targeted, the margin for error is zero.
Yeah. And alongside that civilian toll, a massive threshold has been crossed regarding the U.S. military. The briefing confirms the first American combat deaths in this war.
3 U.S. soldiers were killed at a base in Kuwait.
And there's also footage of a U.S. fighter jet spiraling down, also in Kuwait. This isn't just a proxy engagement anymore.
No, the loss of American service members fundamentally changes the U.S. posture. Sustaining direct combat casualties and losing an advanced fighter jet in a place like Kuwait, which has always been a heavily fortified logistical hub, it's a profound inflection point.
Because it shatters the assumption of uncontested air superiority.
Exactly. Modern jets don't go down easily. It means the airspace over the Gulf is highly contested now.
Which changes the narrative completely. And this overseas conflict, moving at this speed, it directly impacts you, the listener, at the gas pump, in your investment portfolios.
The markets do not like this kind of instability.
No, they don't. Here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at how fast the global economy reacts, the markets didn't even wait for Monday. The algorithms were panicking over the weekend.
Let's look at the oil crisis specifically.
Uh-huh.
Immediately following the weekend's events, oil prices jumped by about 10%.
10% in one jump.
Yeah. Brent crude is hovering around $80 a barrel right now. That is a massive, violent dislocation in energy markets.
And that cascades into everything. Inflation, manufacturing, shipping. But why the panic?
It comes down to geography, right?
It all comes down to the Strait of Hormuz. It's the most important energy artery on the planet. 1/5 of the world's oil goes through that tiny strip of water between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula.
So if it gets blocked, or even just too dangerous to sail through?
Energy prices everywhere skyrocket, and
Yeah.
this isn't just theoretical anymore. The source material notes an oil tanker called the Skylight was actually reported on fire off the coast of Oman.
So the threat is actively happening.
Yes. And when a tanker is on fire near those shipping lanes, maritime insurance premiums explode. If tankers can't get insurance, they can't sail. If they don't sail, 1/5 of the global oil supply effectively vanishes.
Which explains the 10% spike. And it's not just oil, it's global supply chains. The news briefing mentions Maersk, the huge shipping giant.
Right. They are pausing some routes in the Red Sea right now because of fears that Houthi rebels in Yemen might join the conflict.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the military conflict becomes a global supply chain headache. Maersk doesn't halt operations lightly.
Because if they avoid the Red Sea, they have to go all the way around Africa.
Exactly. It adds weeks to the transit time, it burns way more fuel, it causes what the source calls prolonged uncertainty.
A cascading failure of logistics.
A delay in components from Asia halts factory production in Europe. The modern economy runs on just-in-time delivery. There's no slack for a massive regional war.
And the financial markets see this happening. Stocks in Hong Kong and Tokyo are down significantly. U.S. markets are looking shaky.
Investors are seeing burning tankers and rerouted cargo ships, and they are pulling capital out of equities.
So what does this all mean? Let's talk about the political reality and what comes next. What is the timeline here?
Well, based on the briefing, we have some direct insight. President Trump gave an interview to the New York Times, and he laid out a very specific timeline.
He said he's planning to keep up the assault for 4 or 5 weeks.
Right. He described it as one of the most overwhelming military offenses the world has ever seen.
Telegraphing a month-long offensive is a massive commitment. But the critics are pointing out a glaring gap in that strategy, aren't they?
Yes, impartially speaking, the main criticism highlighted in the briefing is the lack of a day-after plan. There is a plan to strike for 4 or 5 weeks, but no clear plan for what happens to the Iranian government afterward.
Right. If you dismantle the leadership, what fills the vacuum? It's a huge concern for regional stability. And on top of that, we have incredibly mixed signals on diplomacy.
Very mixed. The president said he is open to speaking with Iran's new leadership.
But the response from Iran was a flat no.
A top Iranian official, Ali Larijani, stated on social media that they will not negotiate with the U.S. at all.
I mean, politically, they really can they?
Not right now. To engage with the U.S. immediately following the assassination of their supreme leader would be viewed internally as complete capitulation. The door to negotiations is firmly closed for the moment.
So we have a diplomatic stalemate. And back in the U.S., The domestic political fallout is brewing. A major debate is unfolding in Congress.
Some Democrats are explicitly calling this an illegal war.
Because the president didn't get a formal declaration from Congress.
This raises an important question regarding the legal threshold of war. The whole debate centers on whether the threat to the U.S. was imminent enough to bypass Congress entirely.
Right, because American soldiers are now dying in Kuwait, lawmakers are going to demand to see the intelligence that justified this operation.
Exactly. We are expecting some highly tense, closed-door briefings in Washington this Tuesday. National security officials are going to face intense scrutiny over that imminent threat justification and the lack of a long-term plan.
It's just a profound convergence of crises. So as we wrap up, let's just recap the sheer density of what we've covered. Over a single weekend, a year-long ceasefire shattered.
The map of the conflict widened to include the Gulf states.
We saw the first American combat deaths, global economic ripples with oil spiking 10% and Maersk pausing routes, and a tense political debate over the legality of the war breaking out in Washington.
For everyone trying to navigate the news this week, my advice is to look out for the word de-escalation. Because right now, neither side is using it.
No, the rhetoric is all about iron fists and prolonged combat.
Until we see movement toward a negotiating table, the situation remains primed for further escalation.
And that brings me to a final provocative thought for you to mull over. The president projected a timeline of 4 or 5 weeks of overwhelming military offenses.
Right.
If just a single 48-hour period caused massive disruptions to shipping giants like Maersk and caused international markets to plunge, what does a full month of this prolonged uncertainty actually mean for the baseline stability of our interconnected world?
It's a heavy question.
Can global trade genuinely function under a month-long stress test of this magnitude? It's something we're all going to find out together.
The resilience of the global economy is definitely about to be tested.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this measured, in-depth, deep dive into the headlines. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.